Is that a positive?
Yes.
Oh man, look, here's the deal, all right? We can make this real easy. If someone in the car, just let us know. All right?
Bro, if you search that car, I need your ticket number. I will be suing you.
Okay, that's totally fine.
I will be suing you.
So I want to know now. Again, let's just make it real easy. Okay. Is there anything in the car that should be in the car, my man?
My man, if you search that car, I will sue you.
Okay. I'm going to ask you again.
My man, don't say nothing to me. I got the right to remain silent. If you get in that car, my man, you search that car, you will get sued.
Okay. I'm going to check you, so put your hands on top of your head.
I didn't do nothing.
Put your hands on top of your head.
I didn't do nothing. Why is you doing? Why is you doing? Hell, man, I didn't do nothing. What is he doing? Hey, let me. Hey, I didn't do nothing. Hey,
let's just keep going. Keep going.
I didn't do nothing. You're violating my right. You're violating my right. I didn't do nothing. I didn't do nothing. I didn't do nothing. I didn't do nothing.
Right now, we'll just get.
I didn't do nothing.
We can calm down.
I didn't do nothing. Okay. I didn't do nothing. Hey, record. Record.
Hey,
get off me.
Roll up, dude.
Hey,
stop acting like.
Get off me.
Roll up.
Don't get off me. Hey, get off me. Hey, get off me. Hey, you put your knee on my back. You put your knee on my back.
Roll up. Search you.
Hey, record. Hey, record. I didn't do nothing. I didn't do nothing. You're violating my.
I'm gonna check your pockets.
Hey, you better tear me out. Get off me. Hey, get off me. Get off me.
There's a particular kind of confidence that some people carry when they think they've gotten away with something. It's a quiet arrogance, a casual ease, the way someone leans against a car like they own the world, the way someone waves off a police cruiser like it's just another inconvenience rolling by. Not a threat, not a problem, just a minor interruption before the next transaction. That's exactly the posture Jerome was wearing on the afternoon of June 15, 2023, in a parking lot in Elgin, Illinois. He had no idea that a trained officer had already been watching him for several minutes. He had no idea that every movement, every handshake, every quick exchange had already been cataloged and noted, and he certainly had no idea that one of the most reliable tools in modern law enforcement, a nose that can detect what no human eye can see, was already on its way. What followed was a textbook takedown, but it was also something else entirely, a masterclass in how quickly a man's composure can shatter when the game he thought he was running suddenly runs out on him. Stay with us, because this one plays out almost like a movie, except every frame of it is real. To understand what happened on June 15, 2023, you first need to understand where it happened. Elgin, Illinois is a city of about 115,000 people, located roughly 35 miles northwest of Chicago, along the Fox River. Like many mid-sized American cities that border a major metropolitan area, Elgin carries with it a complicated duality. On one hand, there are quiet neighborhoods, family restaurants, parks, and a downtown strip that locals are genuinely proud of. On the other hand, Elgin has pocket-specific streets, specific parking lots, specific corners where the drug trade never really went away. Law enforcement in cities like Elgin will tell you that the hardest part of fighting street-level narcotics isn't the big operations. It isn't the cartel-level investigations or the federal takedowns. Those are handled by specialized units with task forces and years of intelligence work. The hardest part is the daily grind of street-level dealing. The guy who stands in a parking lot all afternoon moving small quantities. The guy who never holds too much at one time. The guy who knows exactly how much he can carry before it becomes a major offense and tailors his operation accordingly. These are the deals that fuel addiction at the community level. These are the transactions, $10 here, $20 there, that keep people hooked, keep families broken, and keep emergency rooms busy on Friday nights. The Elgin Police Department knew this particular parking lot. It was flagged. Officers had received complaints. There had been prior incidents in the area. It was, in the clinical language of police reports, a high-crime area known for the sales and use of narcotics. That language might sound sterile on paper, but in practice, it means that when a patrol officer rolls through that parking lot, they're not just passing through, they're watching. They're paying attention to the details that most of us would scroll past. Who's standing near which vehicle? How long they've been there? Whether the people approaching that vehicle are the same people who just walked away from it 30 seconds ago. On June 15, 2023, one such patrol officer was doing exactly that. The officer had been in the area when he first spotted Jerome. Now, at this point in the video, what you're watching is something that separates experienced officers from rookies. Because to the untrained eye, what Jerome was doing might look like nothing. Standing near a car, talking to people, moving around the lot. Nothing dramatic, nothing loud. But to a trained officer with experience in narcotics enforcement, the choreography of a hand-to-hand drug transaction has a very specific look. It doesn't look like a conversation. It doesn't look like two friends catching up. It has a rhythm approach, exchange departure that repeats itself with a consistency that no legitimate social interaction would have. Jerome was moving through that rhythm repeatedly. The officer watched, and what he observed were what appeared to be multiple hand-to-hand transactions taking place in the parking lot. People pulling up, brief exchanges near Jerome's vehicle, people leaving, new people arriving, the cycle repeating. This is the foundational observation that would drive everything that came after. In law enforcement terms, this is called reasonable articulable suspicion, the legal threshold that allows an officer to make contact with an individual. It's not proof. It's not evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. It's a trained professional's assessment that what they are witnessing is consistent with criminal activity. And what this officer was witnessing was very consistent. The decision was made to make contact with Jerome. But before approaching, the officer made a smart call. He called for backup, and crucially he requested the K9 unit. If you've never seen a police K9 work a vehicle, it is one of the more quietly impressive things you'll ever watch. These dogs, typically German Shepherds or Belgian Malinois, undergo months of intensive training before they're ever deployed in the field. They're trained to detect a specific list of narcotics by scent: marijuana, cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and others. Their sense of smell is estimated to be anywhere from 10,000 to 100,000 times more acute than a human's. What that means in practical terms is this: if there are narcotics inside a vehicle, the dog will almost certainly find them. It doesn't matter if the drugs are inside a sealed container. It doesn't matter if they're wrapped in layers of plastic. It doesn't matter if the car has been sprayed with air freshener, or if the windows have been left open to let the smell dissipate. The dog will find what's there. What the officer was requesting was an open-air sniff, a procedure where the K9 handler walks the dog around the exterior of a vehicle in a location where it is legally present. Crucially, this does not require a warrant. The U.S. Supreme Court has held that if a dog alerts to the exterior of a vehicle in a public space, that alert constitutes probable cause to search the vehicle. This is important because it means the legal mechanism was airtight. If the dog alerted, the search was justified. If the dog didn't alert, the officer's suspicion would remain unconfirmed, and the encounter would end very differently. The K9 unit was on its way. In the meantime, the officer made contact with Jerome. Watch this moment carefully, because it tells you a lot about Jerome's state of mind. When the officer first approaches, Jerome's demeanor is that of a man who believes he has nothing to worry about. He's relaxed. He's cooperative in that performative way, the way someone cooperates when they believe the situation is manageable. He answers questions. He doesn't immediately escalate. He's doing what experienced street dealers often learn to do: stay calm, don't give law enforcement anything to work with, and wait for the officer to move on. This is a calculated strategy. Police encounters with individuals who are outwardly cooperative are significantly harder to escalate into a full search. If you don't give them a reason, the theory goes, they have no basis to dig deeper. What Jerome doesn't know, or perhaps doesn't fully appreciate, is that the officer isn't fishing. The officer has already made his observations. The hand-to-hand transaction pattern has already been noted. The K9 is already coming. Jerome is playing a chess game he thinks is 2 moves ahead. In reality, the board has already been flipped. The officer is professional throughout this contact. Calm, measured, not aggressive. He's gathering information and keeping Jerome engaged while the K9 unit closes in. This is exactly the kind of polished police work that looks unremarkable on the surface but is actually quite skillful. The officer isn't tipping his hand. He's not indicating how much he's already observed. He's keeping the interaction as routine as possible. From Jerome's perspective, this might even be going well. It isn't. When the K9 unit arrives on scene, there is a notable shift in energy. For anyone who's ever been on the wrong end of a police dog's nose, this is the moment that everything changes. Because you can lie to an officer. You can maintain a calm demeanor. You can rehearse your story and stick to it. You cannot lie to the dog. The K9 handler begins the open-air sniff around Jerome's vehicle. This is a methodical process. The dog works a perimeter, circling the vehicle and focusing on the seams and gaps where air exits the interior. These are the points where scent leaks out: the edges of doors, the gap around the trunk, the seams near the wheel wells. Watch the dog's behavior as it works. This is a trained animal operating at the peak of its ability. There's no performance here. The dog isn't trying to please its handler or pick up on subtle human cues. It's following its nose, and the nose finds something: the alert. In the world of K9 law enforcement, an alert is unambiguous. Depending on the dog's specific training, it may sit, it may freeze, it may paw at the vehicle. The exact behavior varies by training protocol. But the communication is clear: I smell narcotics here. Jerome's vehicle has just been flagged by one of the most reliable detection tools in existence. At this moment, the legal picture changes entirely. The officers now have probable cause to search the vehicle. The casual encounter in the parking lot has become something considerably more serious. And this is the moment when Jerome's composure begins to crack. What happens next is fascinating to watch, and it's worth slowing down to really understand what's going on psychologically. Up until this point, Jerome has been managing the situation. He's been holding it together. The strategy stay calm, be cooperative, wait it out has been working, at least in his mind. But the dog's alert fundamentally changes the equation. Because now Jerome knows something he didn't fully know before. This isn't going away. The officers aren't going to get back in their cruiser and move on. They're going to search that vehicle. And whatever is in that vehicle is going to be found. The calm evaporates. What replaces it is anger. Real, raw, unfiltered anger. Now, anger in this context is worth analyzing rather than simply judging. When someone loses their temper during a law enforcement encounter, it can mean a lot of different things. Sometimes it's fear presenting itself as aggression, a kind of psychological defense mechanism that some people default to under extreme stress. Sometimes it's genuine frustration, particularly when someone believes they've been unfairly targeted. And sometimes, and this is relevant here, it's the anger of a person who had a plan, who had worked out how this was supposed to go, and who is watching that plan fall apart in real time. Jerome is clearly in that third category. He begins to argue. His voice rises. He gestures. He protests. The cooperation that marked the beginning of this encounter has been replaced by something much louder and much less composed. The officers remain calm, and this is important. Maintaining a measured professional tone in the face of escalating emotion is a core de-escalation skill, and the officers here demonstrate it clearly. They don't match Jerome's energy. They don't raise their voices. They explain what is happening. They are, in the language of modern policing, holding the line, keeping the situation from spiraling, while still executing the legal process they are entitled to carry out. Jerome isn't making things easier on himself, but the officers aren't letting his reaction change the trajectory of what happens next. The vehicle search proceeds, and here is where the footage becomes a documentary on a very simple truth. The dog knew. What the officers find in the search confirms what the K9 detected. Narcotics product, as the video title puts it, are recovered from Jerome's vehicle. The specific details of what was found are part of the public record of the arrest, but the broader point is clear. Jerome had been running his operation out of that vehicle, and the evidence is sitting right there. This is the moment when the full picture assembles itself. The hand-to-hand transactions the officer observed, those weren't friendly exchanges. Jerome had been selling narcotics out of a parking lot in broad daylight, operating with the confidence of someone who believed they had the situation under control. The product was in the car, the customers had been coming to the car, and the only thing standing between Jerome and another afternoon of business as usual was a patrol officer who happened to know what to look for. As the search continues and the evidence mounts, Jerome's reaction intensifies further. He's vocal, he's animated, he is by any reasonable measure extremely unhappy, and yet the anger is almost beside the point now. The physical evidence speaks louder than anything Jerome can say. The dog found it. The officers confirmed it. It's over. Jerome is placed under arrest. Watch how the officers handle this phase of the encounter. Despite the elevated emotion, despite the outbursts, the protests, the sustained anger, the officers are controlled, professional. They are not retaliating emotionally. They are not escalating physically beyond what the situation requires. They are doing their jobs. Jerome continues to protest as he is detained. He argues about what was found. He argues about the stop itself. He argues about his rights. And to be clear, every person in this country has the right to argue. Every person has the right to contest what is happening to them, in the appropriate legal forum. That's not just permitted, it's an important cornerstone of how the justice system is supposed to work. But the argument Jerome is having in this parking lot in this moment, against this evidence, that argument isn't going to be resolved here. It's going to have to wait for a courtroom. Because right now the facts on the ground are not in his favor. Let's step back for a moment, because every story like this one is bigger than the individual at the center of it. Street-level drug dealing is not a victimless enterprise. It is the last link in a supply chain that stretches from cartels to distributors to mid-level operators to the guy in the parking lot. At the very end of that chain are the people buying the product. Human beings, many of them in the grip of addiction, many of them at the worst points of their lives, trading money they often don't have for a substance that is going to make everything worse. The parking lot isn't just a transaction point, it's an impact point. Every deal that happens there radiates outward into families, into neighborhoods, into emergency rooms, into juvenile courts when the children of addicted parents end up in the system. This doesn't mean that everyone involved in street-level dealing is irredeemably evil. It's a complicated ecosystem, and many of the people who end up in these roles have their own histories, their own poverty, their own trauma, their own limited options. That's not an excuse, but it is context. What it means practically is that the work the officer did on June 15th, the observation, the contact, the K9 request, the search, the arrest, isn't just about one guy in a parking lot. It's about the people who were coming to that parking lot. It's about the street whose quality of life improves, even slightly, when a known distribution point gets taken off the map. That's the invisible math of street-level policing. The work is unglamorous. It's repetitive. It rarely makes the news the way big cartel busts do. But it adds up. Slowly, imperfectly, incrementally it adds up. Before we wrap up, it's worth taking a moment to talk about the K9 unit specifically, because the dog is really the turning point of this entire encounter. Police K9 programs represent one of the most successful human-animal partnerships in the history of law enforcement. German Shepherds have been used in police work since the early 20th century, with many European agencies, particularly in Germany and Belgium, pioneering the formalized use of dogs for patrol, tracking, and detection. In the United States, K9 programs became widespread in police departments from the 1970s onward, and today virtually every major metropolitan department and most mid-sized departments maintain active K9 units. The investment in a K9 partnership is substantial. A trained narcotics detection dog can cost anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000 or more at acquisition. The handler then undergoes hundreds of hours of specialized training alongside the dog before the team is certified for deployment. The ongoing care, veterinary expenses, training maintenance, and logistics of keeping a K9 unit operational represent a meaningful line item in any department's budget. Why do departments make that investment? Because the return on it is undeniable. K9 units consistently produce some of the highest rates of evidence recovery of any tool available to law enforcement. The dog in this video is a perfect example. There was no guarantee that Jerome had product in that vehicle when the initial contact was made. The officer had reasonable suspicion based on observed behavior, but suspicion isn't evidence. The K9's alert converted suspicion into probable cause, and the search that followed converted probable cause into physical evidence. Without the K9, this encounter might have ended very differently. If you watch a lot of police bodycam and dashcam footage, and if you're on this channel, chances are you start to see patterns, not just in how suspects behave, but in how officers behave, in what separates an encounter that stays professional from one that spirals, in what the best police work actually looks like. This footage is a good example of the best of it. The initial observation was careful and patient. The officer didn't rush in the moment he spotted something suspicious. He watched, he gathered information, he built a picture before he moved. The contact was measured, professional, not aggressive, not dismissive, just present and attentive. The decision to call for the K9 was tactically sound and legally clean. It gave the officers a tool that was both highly effective and completely above reproach from a constitutional standpoint. The response to Jerome's escalating anger was textbook de-escalation. The officers didn't take the bait. They didn't rise to meet his volume. They stayed on task. And the arrest was conducted efficiently and without unnecessary force. In a landscape where police footage often captures the worst moments, the breakdowns in judgment, the failures of training, the encounters that go tragically wrong, this video is a useful reminder that many officers, on many shifts, in many parking lots, are doing their jobs exactly the way those jobs are supposed to be done. That's worth acknowledging. Jerome walked into that parking lot on June 15, 2023, believing he had a system, a routine, a way of operating that he'd probably run for some time without serious consequence. He walked out of it in handcuffs. It took one observant officer, one well-trained dog, and one afternoon in Elgin, Illinois. The system he thought was protecting him, the casual demeanor, the small quantities, the parking lot choreography, wasn't as bulletproof as he thought. Because at the end of the day, no system built around criminal enterprise is bulletproof. There's always the officer who notices what others drive past. There's always the nose that finds what the eye misses. There's always the moment when the plan meets reality and discovers they aren't the same thing. That's the story of this video. And it's a story that plays out every day across this country in parking lots, on street corners, in the alleys behind convenience stores, in the largely invisible, unglamorous work of officers who patrol the places that need patrolling. If you found this video interesting, make sure you hit subscribe and leave a comment below. We read every one of them. We'll see you in the next one.